Welcome to the Engineering Lecture Series, Self-Test Revision 12. Your anchor person is Professor Michael C. Ndinechi. Our models to be covered today in the self-tests are models 035, 037, 038, 042, and 043. It dealt mainly on telecommunications, network planning, design, optimization, and so on. If you look at the logo there, you see that it is specific on telecommunications. Please follow me in the engineering lecture series by subscribing to my YouTube channel at https://youtube.com/@Ndinechi Michael C. Like, share, and drop your comments in the comment section or reach out to me using my email addresses. Once again, thank you for being part of the engineering lecture series. In this edition, we will ask some questions and answer them that will help you to know and assess yourself on the level of understanding you have on our lectures and models. This question here is, define telecommunications network planning. What does telecommunications network planning involve? C. Explain the core objectives of telecommunications network planning. Permit me as we go on, instead of calling telecommunications in full, I will abbreviate it to telecoms. They all mean the same thing as far as this lecture and self-tests are concerned. The first answer, so define telecommunications network planning. Telecoms network planning is the process of designing, optimizing, and forecasting a telecommunications network infrastructure and resources to meet current and future communication demands in an efficient, reliable, and cost-effective manner. The important thing here is you must be able to design, optimize, and forecast the infrastructure and resources to meet future demand, because we've seen that when you are making use of your telecoms network, you are planning for a network that may last 20 years or more. So you must be able to forecast that future demands, which will be efficient, reliable, and also cost-effective. As we go on, we see why it has to be cost-effective. The big question which says, what does telecommunication network planning involve? What are the things involved in this telecoms planning? So, telecoms planning involves identifying user needs, analyzing existing infrastructure, estimating future traffic, and determining the optimal deployment of technologies, topologies, and equipment. Here, technologies include things like, are you going to use microwave links, repeater stations, or are you going to use optical fiber? What other technologies? Is this 5G or 6G in future? What topologies are you going to make use of? Star, loop, or hybrid topologies? And of course, the equipment, what type of routers, switches, exchanges you are going to make use of. So you must be able to identify all this, including the future traffic. Is the number of people going to increase? The number of users? What other things are you going to add to your network? Are you going to add data services, video, and so on? Or are you going to have only voice communication? These are things you must identify at the beginning of your network planning. C says that the core objectives of this telecom network planning must include capacity planning, which must ensure that the network can handle current and future traffic volumes with acceptable level of congestion. Then two, quality of service. The objective must guarantee performance parameters such as latency, jitters, bandwidth to ensure that uptime meets defined standards. When we talk of uptime here, means we are talking about the length of time the system will be up and providing the services. When we talk of latency here, we are talking of if you are trying to engage a call, how long does it take to engage? And these standards defined by international and maybe local authorities, you must ensure that the design you have, the network you're planning, must meet this basic performance. The core objective also has to do with cost optimization. Here, we are talking of minimizing both capital expenditure and operational expenditure while still maintaining service quality. Of course, the network you are planning must be scalable. So the design you have to make is such that it can grow or adapt easily as users demand and technology evolves. For instance, if you start with just having voice and data services, there will be a time your users may demand video services, data services. Then when you are moving your system up to include these technologies and service these demands, is your system going to be shut down before you do that? Or can you easily add up these services without much distortion of the services you are already providing? When you do that, you say that your system is scalable. Then you must also have to talk about the coverage area and the accessibility. So here you have to ensure that network availability across all intended service areas, including remote and undeserved regions. Then talk of technology integration. The planning you're going to do must support the current and emerging technologies. Example, if you're making use of 3G and all of a sudden 4G technologies come up And as you move, 5G technologies come up, and people migrate from using, fiber optics to IoT, SDN within the same planning framework. So you must have a good idea of how to integrate these technologies as they emerge. Then you have to talk of your redundancy and reliability of the network you are planning to roll out. So you say you must incorporate backup paths and failover mechanisms to reduce the impact of faults and ensure high availability. Of course, we know what availability means. You also must have to talk of regulatory compliance. You must align your design and your planning with national and international telecoms regulations, policies, and standards. Finally, you must consider environmental and social considerations, which is like you have to minimize the environmental footprint, environmental impact assessment, and consider social impacts such as digital inclusion and community development. So these are the things that are core objectives in telecoms network planning. Two, list the 7 components of any telecommunications network planning. And B, what are the contents of a strategic plan in telecommunications? So the 7 components of telecom network planning include traffic forecasting. You must be able to forecast the traffic the network will carry. That will help you to minimize congestions and establish the grade of service that you are going to provide. Second one is the topological design. Like we said in one of the lectures, you have to look at is it star, is it loop, is it mesh, is it hybrid form of topology that will serve you better. Each one has its own advantages. So you must look at them, know the type of services you're going to provide, and choose the one that will suit you best. You have to also look at the link budget, at least for wireless communications. You have to draw up your link budget, establish, attenuation points, signal drops, and all those to help you see how you can cover the area you are planning to cover. Of course, you have to look at the transmission and switching planning. That is, purely technological. You must look at the numbering and addressing plans. If you look at the models we listed we are covering, you will see how we treated all these topics in full. So, of course, the numbering plans help you to identify uniquely each user in your network. You have to look at the risk and failure analysis for you to maintain high quality of service. Of course, you must have some evolution and migration strategies because there must be development in technologies, and as they develop, you have to migrate to be able to remain relevant in your business. So you must plan on this evolution and migration strategies. Question 2, which says, what are the contents of this strategic plan? See that the contents must be or include: 1, estimates of the traffic to be carried at a number of base dates throughout the period at yearly intervals. If you have done your design to cover 20 to 30 years, you must have a plan of what traffic carrying to carry this year, next year, in 3 years' time, and all that. So your strategic plan for this telecom planning must contain this. And we say that this is also necessary to examine the likely telecoms options throughout the planning period to determine whether new services will need to use the network and extent to which these services will be integrated into the network. Again, the production of this content of the planning will involve investigation into population movements over the period, patterns of industrial activity, and likely changes in home, office, and factory communications. Let's take example here. If there is an annual event that gathers people together to one place, then you have to study that level of population movement and know how to provide more services when such event takes place. And in doing that, you may plan to have out outstation broadcasting vans, so that during that time you move on the vans to help to provide further communication services to the place. So all these are part of things you must have contained in your strategic plan when you are planning your network. And of course, if home equipment going to change from just using computers to moving to using local area networks and Wi-Fi, you have to also integrate all these. Then in that document, it must contain a careful evaluation of new technological solutions likely to be available within the strategic plan period in terms of practicability, facilities which could be provided, and likely costs and cost trends. On the basis of these two above, a comprehensive technical and economic evaluation of the optimal networks to deal with the traffic to be carried at various base dates must be stated. A generalized conclusion should be made on the types of equipment which will be required throughout the planning and design period. Any significant network changes should be clearly brought out. Any significant network changes must be clearly brought out. Where a fundamental change to a network is proposed, then you must look at the cost of transition from what you have to the next one. Because if you don't consider the cost very well, and at that point in time, you are not able to provide the cost requirement to transit from one technology to the other, then your network becomes obsolete. And that is the end of business for you. because providing telecommunication services is purely a business venture. Three, so what do you understand by telecom network planning standards? Network planning standards is a bit different from just saying telecommunication standards. This is network planning standards. Why is standardization necessary in telecom planning? What are the goals of telecom standards? First question is, what do you understand? So tell us what you understand by telecom network planning standards. Say that telecommunications network planning standards are the formal guidelines, rules, and technical specifications that engineers and planners must follow when designing, developing, expanding, and or upgrading an existing telecom network. It is a structured process of designing a network to meet specific services, coverage, capacity, and performance objectives. As you do that, as you plan your telecoms, you must have performance objectives in mind. Planning standards define how this process should be carried out to ensure consistency, quality, and interoperability. Because you are not the only person providing, telecoms services. Your system must be able to communicate with the next vendor's services. So you must be able to interoperate so that you'll be able to communicate with people in the other network. Standardization in telecommunications is necessary to ensure that one, performance is reliable, that is, calls, data, and services run smoothly without frequent failures. In mobile communications, we talk about call drops. While somebody is in motion, you must be able to factor it in to meet international standards. Two, systems are compatible. You must get equipment from different vendors that can work together, because no one vendor can provide all the equipment you need. So you must be able to get equipment that are compatible. That will ensure interoperability with other service providers. Of course, standardization helps to provide good quality of service where customers get the expected speed, clarity, and uptime. There will be no noisy, calls and call drops, and the number of time their calls will fail will be very minimal. So the uptime must be high. Then you talk of safety and security must be ensured. That is, networks are protected against hazards, cyber attacks, and of course, misuse. Then compliance with regulations. Of course, every telecommunication system must meet some local, international, and national laws. If you don't, you stand the risk of getting your operations suspended. Now, these standards ensure that networks are efficient, that is optimal use of resources, is reliable, minimum downtime and failures, interoperable, able to work with other networks and equipment, scalable, it can grow with future demands, and compliant, meaning that it must meet legal and safety requirements. They are used during the planning phase of telecom networks to ensure the design meets technical, regulatory, and operational benchmarks. So standards are used during the planning phase of your telecom networks to ensure that your design meets technical, regulatory, and operational benchmarks. Question 4, so define grade of service. Calculate the grade of service of a telecom network that blocks 20 calls in every 1,000 calls during the busy hour because of all circuits being busy. Now, why is this grade of service an important aspect of telecom network planning? Grade of service is defined as the probability that a call or service request will be blocked or delayed beyond an acceptable limit due to insufficient network resources like circuits, channels, and bandwidth. It is very important for you to note what grade of service is, which is different from quality of service. That grade of service is that probability that when you pick your phone to make a call, that call is blocked beyond an acceptable limit for you due to insufficient network resources. In other words, it is a quantitative measure of the quality of service, not quality of service on its own, but a quantitative measure of the quality of service a network offers to its users, specifically in terms of call handling or service providing capabilities during the busy traffic periods. As we have seen earlier, this grade of service is determined during the busy hour in the telecom industry and service provision. There must be in the day the busiest hour, the busiest 1 hour where many calls are taken. And if we try to draw an analogy of this grade of service, if a bank office has many people on Mondays, many customers on Mondays, it will be wrong for the bank to use that number of customers on Monday to employ workforce so that those people don't have delays. If they do that, what happens on other days when fewer people come? It means many of the workers will remain idle. So in telecom planning, you use this analogy for your grade of service, that in that busy hour, how many people you want to leave unattended so that your equipment doesn't have to lie idle when that number of people are not demanding your services. So use that to understand what grade of service is all about. Now, from the definition of this, grade of service is equal to blocked calls. Now, in the example we gave, 20 calls out of 1,000, which is 0.02, which is 2%. So the grade of service of this network that blocks 20 calls in every 1,000 call is 2%. Now, so why is this grade of service very important? It's one, it ensures a balance between cost and quality. Like I said, if you provide enough equipment to service people at the busy hour so that everybody gets call or gets connected, then the cost of providing that service will be enormous. So you must do a trade-off between what do you want to provide and the cost of it. For instance, low grade of service value, that is when fewer calls are blocked, requires more network resources, which implies higher cost. High grade of service value means that you provide less network infrastructure, but poorer user experience, because during that busy hour, many people will seem to be frustrated because they are not able to make their connections. So this grade of service is used to decide how many channels or circuits to install, how much bandwidth to allocate, and when to upgrade or expand network capacity. You see, grade of service is very, very important when you are planning your telecoms. Question 5 say, what do you understand by numbering plans in telecom network planning? What is the purpose of numbering plans? And explain the 4 types of numbering plans. We answer. A numbering plan is a structured system used in telecoms to assign telephone numbers or address codes or other identifiers in a way that ensures unique identification, efficient routing, and compatibility across networks. The numbering plans are an essential part of service design, interconnection, and international harmonization, because you'll be able to, make calls across international borders. So it has to be harmonized so that, each user will be uniquely identified, and calls must be efficiently routed to the person that it is intended for. The purpose of a numbering plan is to ensure, one, unique identification, ensures every subscriber or service has a unique address. 2, efficient routing, supports call and data packet routing without any ambiguity. The call and the person that is meant for are properly identified without being ambiguous. Then scalability, it allows future expansion without reassigning numbers. And of course, interoperability, which complies with international standards from cross-border communication. service differentiation. It helps separate fixed line, mobile, voice over internet calls, emergency calls, and special services. As we go down, we will see this in the C part of the question. Now, the 4 types of numbering plans are: 1, closed numbering plan. Here, all telephone numbers have a fixed length. 2, open numbering plan, where telephone numbers can vary in length. 3, national numbering plan, where administered by the national regulator. For instance, in our country, Nigeria, NCC, National Communications Commission. For Nigeria, other countries have their own, regulatory bodies. And this is the national numbering plan is country specific and specifies the formats, prefixes, and special codes for that country. Of course, we have the international numbering plan, which we can see in the ITUT, International Telecommunications Union, Technical Recommendations E164, which includes the country code, which will be 1 to 3 digits. For our country, Nigeria, you see 2, 3, 4. Then the national destination code, which identifies the operator or the service provider or the service region. For some countries, it gives this national destination code gives the service region. In some countries like Nigeria, it gives the operator's identity. Then the last will be the subscriber number, which is a unique user number. Now, quickly, in Nigeria, we have a typical number plus 234 803 123 4567. Now, this is somebody's number, but I'm using it as an example, not minding, whether it is real or imaginary. But the first 3 letters, which we say is country code, we know that the country code for Nigeria is 234. Then the next 3, which we say is the national destination code, in this case, has to do with, the service provider. And the last, which has to do with the last 7 digits, has to do with the subscriber, to identify the subscriber. So you see that is a typical numbering plan. First 3 codes, 1 to 3 digits, country code. Then the next 3, national destination code, which may be operator or service region. In America, I think they use the service region aspect. Then the final one is the subscriber's number. Now, question 6. Define signaling standards in telecom planning. And what are the purposes of signaling? B. What are the primary purposes of signaling standard plans? C. What are the 6 primary considerations in developing signaling standards? Answer quickly. Signaling standard plans are strategic frameworks that define how network elements communicate, control, and management information to set up, manage, and release connections. For instance, you pick your telephone landline, you listen to a signal. There is a signal you will hear, you know you can dial. There is a signal you hear, you know that it is not true. So I want you to use that to start, understanding this signal. So they are essential because voice, data, and multimedia services all depend on standardized signaling to interconnect seamlessly across different operators, equipment vendors, and technologies. Primary purpose of signaling standard in telecom network planning is to ensure interoperability between networks, that is, between national and international networks, compatibility with existing and future technologies, helps in efficient call setup and release. For instance, if you're making a call, you'll be able to, hear a signal and understand that, this call has cut off, and be able to redial. Or, there are signals you just, listen, you know that, something has happened. Signaling support for, multiple services, voice, SMS, international, multimedia, and so on. And of course, it helps in regulatory compliance with, things like ITUT, ETSI, 3GPP, and other national standards. As a telecom student, I expect that all these standards we have mentioned here. So the 6 planning considerations when developing signaling standards are: assess traffic forecast. It helps you to assess traffic forecast. That is, estimate signaling load from all call attempts, handovers, SMS, Internet of Things devices, and so on and so forth. It helps you must consider how to select appropriate protocols. You have to match protocols to service types. You have to plan for redundancy by avoiding single points of failure. So you must use multiple signaling transfer points to be able to do that. When we talk of redundancy, we are talking of having another working channel that will come up automatically if the working one fails. So, something like backup that will take over immediately what you are using fail. While you are fixing that, another, hot standby will be in place to take over the activities of the network. Then 4, we talk of interconnect strategy. So must define gateways for inter-operator and international signaling. Migration path, you have to ensure smooth evolution from legacy to next generation signaling. If we go further, we see we have the SS7, signaling standard 7, and other protocols that will help you to, migrate to future, systems. And of course, security, you must protect your system from threats, hijacking, and LTE diameter flooding. These are all terms. We won't have time to, discuss them here. But if you go to the model we listed where we had lectures, we've been able to, explain SS7, SIP hijacking, and LTE diameter flooding. Now question 7, what do you understand by charging plans in telecom network planning? What are the objectives of a charging plan? And ask you to state the typical tariff components in telecom services. We answer quickly. A charging plan, which sometimes people call tariff plan, pricing plan, or charging scheme, is the operator's documented set of rules that specify how network use is measured, what is billed, when billing events, and how charges are applied to customers' accounts. It also shows you how do you generate this billing for each customer. In standards and network planning, charging plan covers both the business rules, that is the tariff items, the bundles, the discounts, and the technical realization, online, offline charging, interfaces, CDRs, were called drop rates, mediations, and billings. Objectives of a charging plan are: 1, to recover revenue and be fair to all concerned. So you must ensure services are billed correctly so operator recovers costs and users are charged fairly. 2, regulatory compliance, so that you will meet some international and national tariff, taxation, and interconnection rules. Because see, when you do international calls, you are also engaging some other people's network and infrastructure. So this charging plan helps them to sort out what is due to each person. So it must meet some international standards. In service differentiation, this enables quality of service based or feature based pricing. Example, the cost of maybe downloading a video may not be just the same as a cost of sending SMS messages. So you also talk of what is the cost at peak or off-peak time. In most telecom networks, you'll see that maybe weekends people have some free calls or at reduced rates. So enables you to charge people fairly. That is the rating. Also, real-time control for prepay and fraud prevention. The charging plan allows balance checks, quota grants, and immediate blocking if fraud is detected. And operational visibility and settlement provide CDRs and records for billing, roaming settlement, and audit. We talk of roaming settlement. You can use your set to move from one or across international borders and still make use of your number and your set. So it means another service provider is allowing you to come into their own network and still provide your services. And that is why the numbering plan is an international standard. So when that is done, then the new operator that is providing you the service must benefit from, the cost of providing you that service. That is part of the reason why charging plan must be adhered to. Then the last part of the question says is that the tariff components that must be charged include, connection or setup fee, which is done once or one time immediately the call is connected. Then subscription or rental, which is, recurring monthly fee. This you may not, notice, but for you to have the SIM for mobile communication, the SIM of a network provider, then you must be able to be paying them something on monthly basis. Some people will complain that my data or my airtime is running out very fast. Well, there are some, do I call it hidden charges? To you, it may be a hidden charge, but because you are subscribing or renting somebody's SIM, you have to, pay some monthly or annual fees for using that. Then usage charges per minute of your call or per MB of your data, per event, if you watch videos, per message, session-based or volume-based. So there must be charges for your usage of the system. Then allowances and bundles, which includes minutes per data or rollover, family share plans. So all these are available. At times you use your data. If you don't finish using it by the end of the month and you recharge before the end of the month, you will be able to roll over the balance to the next month's billing. Some networks provide family share plans, and all these things are, what the network operators charge. At times they give you rebates if you are in any of these, or they charge you more depending on, their business plan. You also have the time, location, quality of service modifiers, whereby they charge you based on peak hours or off-peak, on-net or off-net. Then you have some priority service charges depending on, what services you're providing. They may charge you higher or charge you lower than, basic lines. They also charge promotions, discounts, taxes, and surcharges. There are things you will be doing. At times you see people, when they are doing promotions, they tell you that this thing, immediately you do that, it is costing this amount per every post you make, or some will give you discounts when you do this. Then they also take their taxes, because they have to pay tax, and some other surcharges. So these are the components, very important for you to note what the telecoms operator really charge you for. The connection fee, subscription, rental, usage charges, allowances and bundles, time, location where you are, and quality of service modifiers, then promotions, discounts, taxes, and other surcharges. These are what they put together to form what they charge you and the amount of money they. Thank you for being part of the self-test in engineering lecture series. Hoping that this, self-tests help you to understand more the models we have treated.